Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about how Galadriel is portrayed in the Rings of Power versus Lord of the Rings. And then I want to discuss how her names represent what she should actually look like and how she should be portrayed. And finally I want to discuss her powers and how that might give us some insight on whether it makes sense for us to see Galadriel running around with a sword and armor. Now, Guyladriel was born in Valinor in the Year of the Trees before the First Age. She's also noted as being very tall and physically strong. Now, here we have an image of Galadriel as she's being portrayed in the Rings of Power. Now, my critique about this is that first thing that I don't see is I don't see Galadriel's radiant hair. In Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, she is almost always portrayed with some sort of lighting to ensure that she seems to have radiant hair. Next up is this eye level and head level filming that does not give us a sense of her stature. It doesn't give us a sense of her height. Again, we have another head level shot. Now this shot, I think they were kind of on the right track with this. Having her only take up about a third of the frame, it does give us a little more of a sense of height, but at the same time, this just doesn't look like Galadriel to me. This is actually a better photo where we have, of course, the sun behind Galadriel. We see her radiant hair, and we do have a shot from below. The camera's looking up, and it gives us a little bit of a sense of scale, a sense of height, but it could be even more if they had simply made the people on the right look a little bit shorter, because Galadriel is supposed to be extremely tall. The tallest female elf, and going to be taller than probably even some of the male elves, or as tall as. Now, nothing against Morfydd Clark, but she seems to be a little short, and so they really should have spent more time shooting from this angle. This shot here, again, it's eye level, head level shot, and she just looks wide in this armor. This doesn't give us a sense of height. It actually just makes her look even shorter. This is a good shot. First of all, we have the lighting, we have the radiant hair, we have the long flowing gown, and it's vertical, these vertical lines, which give us a sense of height. This is what we need to be seeing more of. And in this, she looks to be about as tall as Elrond. So to me, this is how they should be shooting Morfydd Clark in the Rings of Power all the time to accurately represent Galadriel. I'm just going to say I don't like the CG in this shot and move on. I don't know what this look is supposed to be. I'm going to move on. Again, I think this is actually a good look. This is, a noble look. Someone who looks, well, not covered in filth. And they could have done something to light her hair, again, to give it that radiant look. And also, again, they should have shot probably from below a little bit, just to give us that sense of height, almost as if everyone must look up to Galadriel. That would also give us kind of a sense of her stature, as she is basically the most powerful elf in all of Middle-earth. Again, I think they're on to the right track here. They've got a camera below, they're filming up, but most of all, they have these horrible horizontal lines on her outfit, which give us a sense of shortness, and they don't bring us a sense of height. So this is actually working against her, and it doesn't make her feel tall. Another missed opportunity here to make her feel very tall amongst her kinsmen. And again, it's just a matter of camera angle. So many missed opportunities. Finally, I'm not going to say much about this other than to say that I think this is ridiculous. So let us get into Galadriel's names and powers. As I said, Galadriel was born in Valinor in the Years of the Trees before the First Age, and her first name was, or is, Artanis. This was given by her father, and it means noble woman. Over time, many words have been used to describe Galadriel, and a few of these include noble, generous, reverent, insightful, merciful, understanding. The next name that we get for Galadriel is Nerwin, which means man-maiden, and this was given to her by her mother, and this was due to her size and strength. She was the tallest of elf women, standing at around 6'4". And as for physical might, Unlike most of the females in Tolkien's writings, Galadriel is powerful physically, not just mentally and spiritually. From the Unfinished Tales, quote, "She grew to be tall beyond the measure even of the women of the Noldor. She was strong of body, mind, and will, a match for both the lore masters and the athletes of the Eldar in the days of their youth." The last name we see for Galadriel is Alatariel, and this means maiden crowned with a garland of bright radiance. This name obviously refers to her hair and was given to her by Celeborn, her husband. Galadriel was highly praised for her beauty, particularly for her hair, which was a deep and radiant gold shot with silver, which was said by the elves to have ensnared the light of the two trees of Valinor, called Telperion and Laurelin. And Galadriel's hair possibly even inspired the creation of the Silmarils by Fëanor. Finally, credit where credit is due to the Rings of Power for finally giving us a stunning representation of these two beautiful trees. Next, let's begin to discuss the powers of Galadriel. Galadriel was no ordinary elf, but a lady of great power. She possessed her tremendous magical powers and was said to be the greatest of the Noldor after Fëanor. When she still lived in the Undying Lands, she had been a pupil of Yavanna and of Aule. And later, she became a friend and confidant to Melian the Maya. Hence, we can deduce that she probably learned some of her powers from these three beings, but the nature of her magic is still not well understood. Now I want to talk about Galadriel's innate powers. These are the powers that arise naturally from Galadriel's physical incarnation as an elf. Now she is born of the Noldarin father, Finarfin of the House of Finwë, and a Telerin mother, Éowyn of the House of Olwë. And she also has the mingling silver and golden light of Telperion and Laurelin. Now, she has her innate powers, of course, elven sight, which is superior to that of men, dwarves, or hobbits. Elvish eyes see further, they see better at night, and they perceive aspects of the natural world, such as forests and the stars, that men, dwarves, and hobbits cannot. Galadriel also has a sort of immortality from the Silmarillion, quote, "For the elves die not till the world dies, unless they are slain or waste in grief. Neither does age subdue their strength, unless one grows weary of 10,000 centuries. She also has enchantment, similar to Gandalf's power, but to a lesser degree, as elves are lesser than the Maya. From the Silmarillion, quote, "The elves' magic is art, delivered from many of its human limitations, more effortless, more quick, more complete, and its object is art, not power. Creation, not domination, nor the tyrannous reforming of creation." Finally, the last innate power that Galadriel has is beauty and perfection. One of her greatest attributes and a great source of pride, but also a temptation for her. She was tempted by the One Ring with the power of beauty and perfection. With the One Ring, she could become so eternally beautiful and perfect that all would desire her. But feeling so out of their league, all would despair of ever earning her regard. Instead of a dark lord who ruled by fear, she would become a shining goddess who would rule by the unattainable and desperate desires of her subjects, addicted to loving her. Quote, "In the place of the dark lord, you will set up a queen, and I shall be dark, but beautiful, and terrible as the morning and the night, fair as the sea and the sun and the snow upon the mountain, dreadful as the storm and lightning, stronger than the foundations of the earth. All shall love me and despair." Next, we have learned powers. These are powers Galadriel accumulated over time through exposure, inheritance, or study. First of all, she was a student of the Valar. From the Unfinished Tales, quote, "Being brilliant in mind and swift in action, she had early absorbed all of what she was capable, and which the Valar thought fit to give the Eldar." Galadriel also shared a certain degree of Fëanor's power as a craftsman, and which enabled her to create talismans such as the Mirror and the Phial of Galadriel, and her friendship with the dwarves of Khazad-dûm may also have assisted in her developing her skillcraft. She was also Melian the Maya's confidant. Galadriel sat on the side of Melian and partook of her counsel over many hundreds of years in King Thingol's citadel of Menegroth. From the Silmarillion, quote, "Therefore she remained in the hidden kingdom and abode with Melion, and of her learned great lore and wisdom concerning Middle-earth." One of the specific powers we are told that Galdriel learned during this time was the art of baking lembas, which is Elvish whey bread, but there were certainly many others. Next, we have her perception of evil. Now, Galdriel was unrivaled in discerning evil intent behind fair faces and words. Before Valinor was darkened, she became weary of Feanor's intentions. From the Unfinished Tales, quote, "For Feanor beheld the hair of Galdriel with wonder and delight. He begged 3 times for a tress, but Galdriel would not give him even 1 hair." In the Second Age, Galdriel was one of the very few who could not be deceived by Sauron's fair form, Anatar, the Lord of Gifts. And in the Third Age, she was the first to recognize the threat posed by the necromancer in Dol Guldur and urged the White Council to action. Lastly, we have the Light of the Two Trees in Valinor. Galdriel not only benefits from the increased power and nobility from just having lived during the time of the Two Trees, but she further seems to have physically absorbed some of that radiance. Quote, "Her hair was lit with gold as though it had caught in a mesh the radiance of Lorelin." Next, we have artifact powers, and these are powers derived from the possession and use of physical magical artifacts. First of all, Galdriel is a wielder of the Elisar. The following passages in Tolkien's Unfinished Tales of Numenor and Middle-earth tell of the immense power contained within the magical green gem of the Elisar, or the Elfstone, which Gandalf the Grey gave to Galdriel, who in turn gifted it to Aragorn. Now, quote, "This I bring to you from the Vala Yavanna. Use it as you may, and for a while you shall make the land of your dwelling the fairest place in Middle-earth." Wielding the Elisar, all things grew fair about Galdriel, until the coming of the shadow to the forest. And specifically enumerated as one of the Elisar's powers is the power to grow Malorn trees. Next up, we have the Mirror of Galdriel. From the Lord of the Rings, quote, "Many things I can command the mirror to reveal, and to some I can show what they desire to see. But the mirror will also show things unbidden, and those are often stranger and more profitable than things we wish to behold. What you will see if you leave the mirror free to work, I cannot tell, for it shows things that were, and things that are, and things that yet may be. But which it is that he sees, even the wisest cannot always tell." And finally, we have telepathy. Galdriel also possessed the skill of Osanwe, the ability to communicate with others through thoughts. Now, this could be due to a connection between the 3 elven rings, Nenya, Narya, and Vilya, because Galdriel seems to demonstrate a peculiar amount of knowledge regarding both Elrond and Gandalf. For instance, she says to the Fellowship after Gandalf's death in Moria, "I cannot see him from afar unless he comes within the fences of Lothlorien. A gray mist is about him, and the ways of his feet and of his mind are hidden from me." But she is also able to communicate with Frodo and the others in the Fellowship. And this could be an artifact power, but it also could be an innate power, as she is described insightful. Perhaps that insight is not just being able to read people, but literally being able to read their minds. And this brings us to the last bit about Galadriel's powers. Her powers are not fully understood. Due to her enigmatic nature, even the powerful white wizard Saruman and an elf as perceptive as Elrond found it difficult to understand her powers. It is important to note that Galadriel primarily uses her powers for defense and for preservation of her realm, not out of anger or malice. She specifically refused to take the Oath of Feanor and did not participate in the kinslaying at Aqualond. But she was formidable, and she did use her formidable power to destroy the very foundations of Dol Guldur, a fortress whose power was multiplied by Sauron's magic. Now, besides her magical power, Galadriel was also very wise and intelligent. She was one of the very few who were never fooled by Sauron in the Second Age. She also refrained from using the powers of Nenya while the One Ring was in Sauron's possession, so as to avoid being corrupted, and only used the ring after the One Ring was lost, for it was then safe to do so. But let me know, what do you think of the most powerful elf in all of Middle-earth? What do you think of how her attributes appear to be portrayed by Amazon in the Rings of Power versus how they were portrayed in Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings? Does she strike you as someone who needs a sword and needs armor, or does she strike you as someone who, like I've described before, stays back and stays hidden? She is the unseen force, the unseen will, and she is the strategy behind the tools as mundane as swords and shields and armor. Let me know what you think in the comments below. In the meantime, if you want to continue to smash the narrative, then smash the like, subscribe, and share buttons, and I will see you in the next video. Have a great day.